death toll in Haiti in the wake of Hurricane Matthew has risen to above 1,000, and authorities are burying bodies in mass graves to prevent a cholera outbreak.
Cholera has spread in the southwest, with the death toll rising to 1,000. Authorities stress that the burials have to start immediately, as the bodies are beginning to decompose. Kedna Fresnel, the most senior central government official, said there was great concern about the spread of cholera. He said authorities were focused on getting water, food and medical supplies to the thousands of people living in shelters. The first batch of food aid from the United Nations was delivered to the city of Jeremy on Sunday.
The Russian Defense Ministry said on Saturday that Russia has moved nuclear-capable Iskander-M missiles into the Kaliningrad enclave bordering Poland and Lithuania. The ministry added it was part of routine drills. A U.S. intelligence official said on Friday that Russia had started moving the Iskander-Ms into the enclave on the Baltic in what it said could be a gesture to express displeasure with NATO. Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov said one of the missiles had been deliberately exposed to a U.S. spy satellite. He said, "We did not have to wait for too long. Our American partners confirmed it themselves in their revelatory endeavor." Lithuania, which is a neighbor to Kaliningrad and a member of NATO, said it would protest to Moscow.
Russia's defense ministry said on Monday that the country was poised to transform its naval facility in the Syrian port city of Tartus into a permanent base. Meanwhile, Syrian government forces are keeping up their assault on rebel-held eastern Aleppo. A UK-based monitor says government forces have taken control of the Dendo crossroads in northeast of Aleppo. Russia on Saturday vetoed a French-drafted UN resolution demanding an end to the bombing. Moscow's rival plan on a truce was also rejected. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on Sunday said Russia had the means to protect its assets in Syria in case of bombing raids by the U.S.
Indian security forces have violently attacked a funeral procession of a young boy who was killed during an anti-India protest in Kashmir. Clashes erupted as thousands of Kashmiris carrying the coffin marched to the main graveyard in Srinagar. Indian forces fired shotgun pellets and tear gas at the crowd, who were chanting pro-independence slogans. The 12-year-old boy was hit by shotgun pellets on Friday and later succumbed to his injuries. Meanwhile, authorities have imposed a fresh curfew in Srinagar following the clashes. Kashmir is experiencing its largest protests against Indian rule in recent years, sparked by the killing of a pro-independence leader in July. Since then, over 80 civilians have been killed and thousands injured by Indian forces. Kashmir has been divided between India and Pakistan since the two countries gained independence from Britain in 1947.
Attacked once again. What had been a funeral for one man ended in the deaths of dozens of others. The Houthi rebels say Saturday's airstrikes in the capital were carried out by the Saudi-led coalition. The two groups have been at war since March last year after the Houthis took control of Sana'a. The coalition initially denied it was responsible. Now it says it will investigate what it's called the regrettable and painful bombing with experts from the US. The White House says it's reviewing its support for the coalition, but that's unlikely to satisfy the Houthis.
We hold the international community and the United Nations organizations responsible for the continuation of these crimes against the Yemeni land and its people.
On Sunday, hundreds of Houthi supporters condemned the coalition for the attack.
We came out today to send a message to the Saudi ruling family that we will not kneel, we will not give in, no matter how criminal your aggression is, no matter how much more Yemeni blood you shed.
Former President Ali Abdullah Saleh has called on the rebels to launch revenge attacks on the Saudi Arabian border. Saleh is still powerful in Yemen and has influence with the military. Iran, which is accused of supplying military support for the rebels, has condemned the airstrikes. Peace in Yemen appears further away than ever.
Ethiopia's government has declared a 6-month state of emergency. Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn made the announcement on Sunday. It follows days of unrest in the country. The Prime Minister says the rule of law will be maintained. CCTV's Girum Chala has this update.
A week ago, scores of people were killed during a national celebration. Government says protesters were behind it. Demonstrators blame the police. The incident sparked days of turmoil in Ethiopia. Armed groups have been targeting factories and burning them. Both public and private institutions have come under attack. Ethiopia has seen months of protests by members of two of the country's largest tribes. Protesters say they are not seeing the benefits of Ethiopia's economic success. They're also accusing government of cracking down on civil liberties. Government has now responded by declaring a state of emergency. Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn has said, quote, "We put our citizens' safety first." The state of emergency will last at least 6 months. Some Ethiopians argue that the move is not in the best interest of the country.
The San Andreas Fault in California is long overdue for a major earthquake, like more than 100 years overdue. But scientists just made a discovery that might tell us why the fault has been so quiet. It's called the Salton Trough Fault, and it lies along the northeastern edge of the Salton Sea in Southern California. The fault line is underwater, so scientists didn't find it until recently. Scientists believe the Salton Trough could be absorbing strain from San Andreas. That might explain why a major earthquake hasn't occurred along the San Andreas in more than 300 years. And Southern California has been waiting for the big one. A series of small earthquakes earlier this year caused worry among residents and scientists. The big one is a hypothetical earthquake with a magnitude predicted to be greater than 7. Southern Californians have anticipated such a quake for a long time. But scientists say the Salton Trough still needs to be researched. When that series of small earthquakes hit San Andreas earlier this year, one seismologist noted the lack of records on the Salton Trough makes it difficult to see if the two faults affect each other at all. For News.
In Southern California, scientists listening to rumblings deep underground found seismic activity at deeper than expected levels. According to CBS News, the activity may signal new earthquake extremes. In order to better see these so-called microsignals, a group of researchers temporarily deployed detectors along the Newport-Inglewood Fault, or NIF, which stretches nearly 50 miles from Culver City to Newport Beach in Southern California. Study lead author Asaf Inbal of the California Institute of Technology told Live Science most of the damage is inflicted by large earthquakes, but these small earthquakes, like the ones we observe at NIF, occur much more frequently, and their location can be used to highlight active faults and their depth. The unexpected depths of these earthquakes raise questions about quake monitoring. The researchers said scientists don't know whether these temblors are widespread and have simply been missed at other faults because of the difficulty in monitoring small, deep quakes, or if the NIF is unique and somehow the fault has deep seismicity that extends to the upper mantle.
The sign of Baal has appeared on American soil, and it just happened within this last month. In September, it appeared in New York City. I went down there to witness it myself. Here's the arch that led the worshipers of Baal to worship Baal in the temple of Baal from Syria. And so,
no, but it wasn't introduced in New York as this is Baal here. It was introduced under other names, right?
Well, there's actually, and you may have a spot. There was actually a plaque right by the arch that Temple of Bel. Well, Bel is Baal.
Oh, okay.
Same God.
Okay.
Same God. So they're not saying we're worshiping this, but that's what they did. So here you've got an arch devoted to Baal. I mean, the God, the anti-God of the Bible. And happening in America. The deputy mayor of New York was speaking, and she says, we're doing this as an act of defiance. Now, this is in the Harbinger completely. And in the Harbinger, talks about the people saying we're going to rebuild Israel when they were attacked. Said, and this is the warning sign, said, we're going to rebuild what was broken, and it was broken by the Assyrians. Well, this arch was destroyed last year by ISIS, who are the Assyrians in the land of Assyria. So we're literally fulfilling the harbinger and putting up the sign of a nation that America is the nation that has known God, has been falling away from God and turning to other things. It's calling evil good and good evil, persecuting the righteous. This is a danger sign.
One of the missiles had been deliberately exposed to a U.S. spy satellite. He said, "We did not have to wait for too long. Our American partners confirmed it themselves in their revelatory endeavor." Lithuania, which is a neighbor to Kaliningrad and a member of NATO, said it would protest to Moscow.
Getting water, food and medical supplies to the thousands of people living in shelters. The first batch of food aid from the United Nations was delivered to the city of Jeremy on Sunday.
The Russian Defense Ministry said on Saturday that Russia has moved nuclear-capable Iskander-M missiles into the Kaliningrad enclave bordering Poland and Lithuania. The ministry added it was part of routine drills. A U.S. intelligence official said on Friday that Russia had started moving the Iskander-Ms into the enclave on the Baltic in what it said could be a gesture to express displeasure with NATO. Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov said,
The death toll in Haiti in the wake of Hurricane Matthew has risen to above 1,000, and authorities are burying bodies in mass graves to prevent a cholera outbreak.
Cholera has spread in the southwest, with the death toll rising to 1,000. Authorities stress that the burials have to start immediately, as the bodies are beginning to decompose. Kedna Fresnel, the most senior central government official, said there was great concern about the spread of cholera. He said authorities were focused on